Hello. I'm going to do some of the techniques on the painting procedure chart. I'm going to do this in two parts. I'll do the first 6 and then we'll do the second 6 in the second part. I'm going to begin with impasto. Impasto is using thick paint. So I'm going to really load up my brush and put it on really thickly. What you can do with the water-soluble oils. With the acrylic paints, you need to add gloss gel into them because they will flatten out later. The water-soluble oils will stay thick. But with the acrylic paints, you have to add the gloss gel into them so it's really thick. This is creating a thick, rough texture, really piling the paint on. One of the important things of painting is the surface quality of it. Some artists like their paintings to be fairly flat. Other artists like to build it up thicker. Next, I'm going to do blending. So I'll clean my brush in the water and on my rag so I don't get that blue and green into it. And I'll start up here at the top. And I'm going to go across horizontally. Put a little thinner into it so it's more fluid. And then I'm going to overlap my strokes. This is easier to do with the water-soluble oils because it doesn't dry so quickly. I'm going to get down into some red-orange. Let's say I was blending a sunset. And then I'll get into orange. So it's a gradual change. Overlap your brush strokes. And you could also do this with a fan blender. They work out really well for subtle blending. Next, I'm going to do collage. Collage is putting foreign objects into the painting surface. That could be sand or sawdust. There's this tape that's used for drywall that could go into it. Got a whole box here of beads that could go in, feathers, wire, string, anything like that. I'm going to put some sand into my paint. I will use this right here. And I'll mix some sand into it. There are artists like George Brock who put sand into their paint. And this will give a texture to your painting. Add some more white into here, and maybe just a little medium. To make it a little more fluid. And then I can put this on with my brush, or I could put it on with a palette knife. Painting's all about the surface quality, so some artists want a real thick texture. And then I can let this dry, and then I can go back over top and paint over this texture. Now with collage, I could put pictures into it from a magazine, and I can glue those in with Elmer's glue, or you can use the gloss medium to also act as a glue to adhere things to the canvas. Next is imprinting. Imprinting is using real thick paint again. Just like impasto. So with water-soluble oils, you can just build the paint up real thick. With the acrylics, you have to add the gel medium into your paint to make it thicker. So I'm going to build this up real thick. Lots of paint, impasto. And then I'm going to press things into it to imprint into the paint. So let's see if I have that thick enough. I have some things here that I can press into the paint. Like a fork. It's not quite thick enough, I don't think. Let's see. I've got to get that thicker. Real thick impasto. there you can see. You can make different marks into the paint. By pressing different objects into it. Yeah, that's working. And that will dry and you'll see the marks, the texture that we leave into the paint. Next is dry brush. Dry brush is getting very little paint on your brush so that you see the texture of the canvas coming through. I'm going to use a little bigger brush, I think, for this. And maybe we'll use this color. And dab most of it off. That's why it's called dry brush. And then dab it on to your canvas. This is a little too wet right there. You want to see the texture coming through. You could use this to create the illusion of leaves on a tree or bushes. Like that. And the final technique for part one is sgraffito. We use a darker color. And this has to be fairly thick again. I'm building this paint up fairly thick. When you use acrylics, you're going to have to work a little faster for some of these techniques, where the water-soluble oils don't dry quite so quickly. So now I'm going to draw into this with a sharp object. You could use the handle of your brush. I'm going to use these things called color shapers. They have a handle and they just have a plastic tip. This helps with canvas. You wouldn't want to use a nail and cut right through your canvas. But you can use these and draw right into your wet paint. They work pretty well, and they have some different tips. Some are broader, some are thinner. And that's the end for part number 1.